When we last left Major League Baseball, Walker Buehler was on the mound in the Bronx. The Yankees want to see that happen a little more often in 2025.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I've been a baseball podcaster for a while, and in just a few weeks, we will be starting my 7th year here at the Locked On Podcast Network. You can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball at Blue Sky, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. You could start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, it's Sunday morning. I know a lot of people are going to be watching football today. I may watch my first football game of the year. This is usually the time. I don't claim to be a football fan at all, but this is usually the time I look up and I say, who's good? Is anyone good this year? Who's the best teams? And as of this recording, it's about 7:45 in the morning here in Los Angeles County. I honestly don't know who's good or not. And whenever I root for I don't have a team. I don't have a team that I really root for. So I always kind of like latch onto a team completely based on World Series results. Like, oh, it's been a while since this city's had a World Series champion, or like when the Seahawks won, I was like, oh, that's good because all those Mariner fans are sad. That's my only frame of reference I have. But it's the offseason. As I mentioned before, the World Series ended with the image of Walker Buehler having his great redemption, standing on the mound, striking out Verdugo, and getting, and clinching the World Series, getting his first career Major League save, and that save being to clinch the series. And a wonderful moment if you're a Dodger fan, because the Dodgers were running out of pitchers, and he wound up getting the final, getting that final out, and wound up pitching 6 scoreless innings in the World Series, striking out 7 Yankees, allowing only 2 hits and 2 walks along the way in his 1 start and his 1 relief appearance. That was our lasting image. Not our lasting millage, but our lasting image. Well, the Yankees want to see more of that, as I hinted at, and lots of reports are coming out. The New York Post, John Heyman, is basically saying that they are really big time kicking the proverbial tires on Walker Buehler. John Morosi of MLB Network has said there is some mutual interest. Now, I find this to be, first of all, a little bit of a no-brainer in a way for the Yankees to want to acquire him, because when Walker Buehler is healthy, he's an all-star. We've seen the couple of times in his career where he has pitched, he's pitched regularly. He's been a legit ace. He's made the All-Star team twice. He's been in the he's got some Cy Young votes. He was finished 9th in the Cy Young in 2019, but in 2021, which is probably his best overall season, he finished 4th in the Cy Young race. You've seen when he's pitched in the postseason, especially in the World Series. I mean, he's pitched 4 World Series games to an ERA of 0.47. And he's pitched pretty darn well, with an exception here or there. The Braves clobbered him in 2021, and the Padres clobbered him in 2024 in his 1 start this year. But in the end, he righted the ship, pitched well against the Mets, and the Yankees need some pitching depth. the one thing the Yankees really have, I mean, besides Judge, that you can count on is Garrett Cole, even though he missed the first third of the season, he's going to be a good pitcher. You got Luis Heel, who won the Rookie of the Year. And so he's going to pitch pretty well. Barring a sophomore slump. Carlos Rodon had a horrific first season with the Yankees, but he was pretty good this year. He was pretty good. He was up and down. The Dodgers had their way with him in his one World Series start, but he pitched, he was not the problem. So the advantage for the Yankees kicking the tires on Walker Buehler is they're not asking him to be the ace. There's whether it's Clark Schmidt, I mean, Clark Schmidt's pitched pretty well. And maybe there's, they have some young pitchers, maybe a Will Warren who had a cameo with the Yankees this year, and they're hoping he could make the jump. In some ways, the Yankees are the ideal fit for a pitcher like Walker Buehler because he's talented, he's big game tested, and there's a little bit of a, if you can't beat him, join him with the Yankees not being able to beat Walker Buehler, was able to get on over here. Remember, Marcus Stroman is also signed through the next year. It's odd, wasn't it? He was on the World Series roster, and he pitched as many innings as I did. I found that very strange. He was the Maytag repairman. There is a caveat. The one thing I kept saying is that when Walker Buehler is healthy, he is terrific. And that's a big if. This year, and by the way, this shows how we will always skew our view of a player's season based upon how they did in the postseason. This is always going to be a year of a Walker Buehler triumph. That he pitched well in his one start against the Mets. He pitched very well in the one start against the Yankees, where he threw 5 shutout innings, came out of the bullpen to clinch the World Series. This is going to be looked upon as a great triumphant year for Walker Buehler. Well, I could also tell you there was a debate of whether or not he should even be on the postseason roster. Remember, he was really hurt this year. Remember, he missed all of 2023. The whole damn season he missed. He pitched 16 games this year and didn't pitch very well. His ERA was over 5. He got clobbered for most of the year and basically was not very good. And so you take a look at someone who, and he wound up missing half of the 2022 season as well. 2021 was the last year that he basically pitched an entire season. And he is now north of 30. And he's had the Tommy John surgery. He's had tons of injuries in his career. And, excuse me as I scratch my nose. And basically has not been the same pitcher in the regular season since midway through the 2022 season. That's all of 2023, 2024. He's going to be over 30. And there's one thing the Yankees seem to have done a lot over the years recently is pick up players who are susceptible to injury. And wouldn't this be something that they sign Walker Buehler to a long-term deal without realizing, the guy who is on the mound is not the guy he's normally been since 2022. Now, I put that caveat on because you got to keep that in mind. I would never sign Walker Buehler to a long-term deal. I would sign him to a short-term deal. The Yankees aren't asking him to be the ace. So, as I said, it's a move that makes sense. I'm not against the move if either team makes it. It's a move that makes sense for Walker Buehler because, well, he's going to keep playing on a contender, and the Dodgers are probably going to move on. It's strange that the Dodgers desperately need starting pitching, and they might let their hero walk away. But, that could be the price of doing business. I think Buehler's it would not stun me to see Buehler walk away and join the Yankees. It wouldn't stun me if he pitched pretty well over 12 games. And I think we could all, and this is not time for a FanDuel ad read yet, but I think we could all guarantee that he's going to be on the injured list for some extended period of time. But hey, might be worth a shot. All right, folks, we got a new sponsor, and that is Omaha Steaks. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off site-wide during their cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with promo code MLB. With 5 generations of experience, Omaha Steaks consistently delivers the world's best steak experience, and their gifting expert make it easy to deliver the perfect gift throughout the curated gift packages starting at $89.99. From legendary steaks to mouthwatering desserts and more, save 50% site-wide during the cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an additional $30 off with promo code MLB and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code MLB. Minimum purchase may apply. Raise the stakes. It's Omaha Steaks. Remember how I said that one of the places that a baseball team could potentially play is Omaha because they have the stadium there for the College World Series? Wouldn't that be a cool name? The Omaha Steaks. I'm into it. The Omaha Steaks. I'm all in. Let's go. There's other things happening in baseball. A trade was made. Trades are the most fun thing in baseball in the offseason because that's when you treat the players like they're baseball cards. There's a new sheriff in town in Cincinnati, and it's Terry Francona, who did not come to Cincinnati for a rebuild. He came to win. And one thing that, Francona obviously won 2 World Series titles with the Red Sox. He came within one swing of winning a World Series title in Cleveland. And one thing he knows is he needs pitching to win. Pitching is essential for a victory. And Brady Singer is a pitcher who's had success. Is he an ace? No. Is he depth? You bet. Made 32 starts last year with the Kansas City Royals. Pitched in the playoffs when they lost to the Yankees in the division series. Remember, Brady Singer had a pretty good rookie year in the COVID season. He pitched well in his 12 starts and is now heading off to Cincinnati and giving them a little bit of depth. The Reds seem to be teetering on the brink of doing something. They have some dynamic players on their team. Ellie De La Cruz is as exciting a player as there is. I'm not saying he's one of the best players, but he's exciting and has a spark in that. And I love the fact that this team is built on speed and built on keeping the other teams on their toes. They also have Hunter Green. And Hunter Green had a fine season as a starting pitcher. They have Andrew Abbott. And Andrew Abbott had a decent year. Not great, but a decent year as a starting pitcher. They need lots of pitching depth to take over a very winnable division. And I like that this is an aggressive trade. And I love that it's major leaguer for major leaguer. Jonathan India was who the Reds gave up. That's right, the rookie of the year from 2021, who has been, he's not been as great since that rookie year. Has some pop, has some speed, plays a position where you're not expecting a ton of offense. But if they're able to get a solid major league pitcher and be able to fill that hole elsewhere, be able to fill the second baseman hole elsewhere, you make that move. You make that move, 100 times out of 100 if you're Cincinnati. But it also can make sense for Kansas City. Putting Jonathan India into this lineup, which we see already has an MVP in it. And so basically with Bobby Witt Jr., you got to create a good, support staff around him. And maybe, just maybe, as the team is making steps towards, taking the next leap, 100 losses in 2023, getting to game 4 of the division series, and really, pushing the Yankees a little harder than a 3-game-to-1 final would appear. I think this works for both teams. I think a change may do, to quote the Elton John song, Get Back Honky Cat, a change is going to do you good. I put that preface on because I know a change is going to do you good is grammatically incorrect, but I wanted to say I'm quoting Elton John. So having an extra bat with some power and some speed and maybe a little spark on the team as the Michael Garcias and the Vinny Pasquantinos all surround Bobby Witt Jr. Yeah, you're taking away Brady Singer, but you still have Cole Reagans, you still have Seth Lugo, you still have Alec Marsh on the team, you still have some good pitchers, and if they go off and if they pull off a move for another starting pitcher on, especially the non-tender, Patrick Sandoval is available. Probably not a big cost there. Also, keep in mind the Royals are also picking up a young outfielder by the name of Joey Wiemer. Joey Wiemer is only 26 years old, or will be 26 when it comes around. Remember, in 2023, hit 13 home runs, 11 stolen bases, and played for got an at-bat in the postseason for the Brewers that year. So what the Royals are hoping for is quite simple. If those two players with some pop and some speed could improve in KC, then all of a sudden the Royals are getting a little bit of offensive depth on the squad, and the Reds are getting the pitchers that Francona needs. I don't know. I think it's a good, solid move. Speaking of former Red Sox champions, let's talk about Rafael Devers for a second. He's still a Red Sox. He's the one player the Red Sox haven't let go. And you would think they would do everything in their power to try to make him happy. Devers, there's been chatter, thanks to Sean McAdam of Massachusetts Live, of moving Rafael Devers from third base to first base. Now, Devers doesn't want to do that. Devers seems to want to be at third. He's a silver slugger there. He's an all-star. He had another fantastic season this year. 2023, he was an all-star and a silver slugger. He remains, this is going to be Devers' 9th year with the Red Sox, and he remains a link to the championship years of the Red Sox, as be part of the 2018 squad. He's the unofficial leader of the team. He's never played a game in the major leagues at first base. And so, okay, what are we doing here? And here's the deal. Rafael Devers is a solid player for the Red Sox because of his bat, not because of his glove. By almost all accounts, his glove is kind of rotten. And when you take a look and you've got a bunch of young infielders on this squad. Now, you see him, if he could make the move. Now, we saw Ceddanne Rafaela make the move to shortstop. One of his great qualities that he can play the outfield and shortstop. I'd like to see him stay at shortstop. And by most metrics, Devers is a lousy defensive third baseman. And you have players like Nolan Arenado and Alex Bregman who are available. Do you know who's also there? Do you know who's also around here that we should talk about? The fact that the Red Sox top prospect right now, well, you got Roman Anthony and you got Marcelo Meyer. Marcelo Meyer is an infielder. Marcelo Meyer is the player who they're hoping is going to be when he was the number 4 overall pick, and some people thought he could have been the number 1 overall pick. He's the person the Red Sox should be grooming to be their next big star. And maybe he can make the move to third base, or maybe Saddam can make the move to third base. Either way, you want to have the best defensive infield you can there, and that does not include Rafael Devers at third. It's going to add a bunch of years to his productivity if he makes the move over to first. Remember, Albert Pujols started off as a third baseman. He made the move over to first. Mark McGwire started his career as a third baseman. Jim Thome started his career as a third baseman. All these people were third basemen. Tony Perez started his career as a third baseman, moved over to first, and became, all of them put together, Hall of Fame careers. Is Rafael Devers a Hall of Famer? I don't know. Would he be a better shot at the Hall of Fame if he spent his entire career at third? Maybe. Is he going to do that? He shouldn't. He should make the move. Make the move so the young kids can come in. Make the move so they could be a suitor in the Alex Bregman sweepstakes. Make any type of move you want. But make that move over there and say, hey. Remember how good it felt to win a World Series? That's going to come a lot quicker if you make the move over to first. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So if you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. All right, on this day this is a day that is somewhat significant. On this day in 1943, one of the last acts that Kennesaw Mountain Landis, the commissioner of baseball, he died not long after this, he permanently banned the owner of the Philadelphia Phillies, William D. Cox. And William D. Cox had to let go of ownership of the team, and Bob Carpenter took over the squad. Now, Carpenter was the Carpenter family owned the Philadelphia Phillies for years and years and years after that. And when they finally won their first World Series in 1980, they were still owned by the Carpenters. Now, I'm not going to let go of mentioning Mr. Cox. William Cox took over the Philadelphia Phillies and basically only owned the team for like a year or so. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was 1943. He bought the Phillies for, say it with me, folks, $80,000. Not $80 million, $80,000. And a year, at the end of the year, he was permanently banned. Now, one of the reasons he was permanently banned is he was betting. He was gambling. Two people who have been banned from baseball because of gambling include William Cox and Pete Rose. Both had their links to Philadelphia baseball. And one of the big reasons why he was caught betting on games that he owned was at one point he had Bucky Harris, who was the manager of the team. And Bucky Harris had a tremendous amount of success as a manager, including managing the Senators to success earlier and helping the Yankees as the manager of the 1947 World Series champions. He clashed with his owner, Cox, and when he got fired, Harris said, "Cox is a fine guy to fire me when he gambles on games his club plays." Said that out loud, said that on the record, and Landis banned him for life. Now, of course, that opened the door for the Carpenter family to put together the team. But Cox was a significant figure in baseball, and I have talked about him. I wrote about him for the Hardball Times, and my article is on Fangraphs. I wrote about this back in 2011. And when I did my whole podcast where I was wandering around the streets of Philadelphia, talking about the history of the A's and the Phillies, I talked about it in great detail. So I won't go into as much detail, but it's always worth bringing up the fact that Cox, in his 1 year, invested in players and player development and signing players to put into the farm system in a way that the previous ownership never did. The Philadelphia Phillies were a laughingstock organization from their founding in the 1880s right up until the Cox year of 1943. In that whole period of time, the Phillies won the pennant once. They won one playoff game or one World Series game in 1915. They were a joke of a franchise. And it was the A's under Connie Mack who won pennants in the 1900s, the 1910s, the 1920s, and the 1930s. It was obvious the A's were the dominant team of Philadelphia, and the Phillies were a mere afterthought. As I brought up in the 1950s, when teams started moving because they realized most cities couldn't support two teams, it was odd that it was the Phillies who stayed in Philadelphia and not the A's with a greater rich heritage. And a big part of that could be linked back to when Cox started investing in the team. And it flowered under the Carpenters, who took all the credit. But a lot of those seeds were planted. A lot of the players who were acquired and developed flowered in 1950 when the Phillies won the pennant, got all the way to the World Series, while the A's were a disaster. And at that vital period of time, that Venn diagram, when the A's were terrible, the Phillies were good, and cities couldn't support two teams, the only time in its history the Phillies were better than the A's, it was the A's who left. And the Phillies became an institution for Philadelphia sports fans. And the A's are a vagabond. Went to Kansas City for a decade. Went to Oakland, but kept kicking the tires on every other city in America. Now we think they're playing in Sacramento, or maybe they'll be playing in Las Vegas, or maybe the Rays will move to Las Vegas and they'll be stuck in Sacramento, or maybe they'll go to Utah, and all of that would have been different. With the A's staying put in Philadelphia, it probably would have been the Phillies wandering around creation. So today was the day, back in 1943, a obscure yet very important figure in baseball history was banned for life. And with that came a domino effect that this franchise, the A's, are feeling to this day. All right, well, have a great Sunday, everyone. Looks like it's going to rain here in Los Angeles. We could use it. And getting ready to eat a lot of turkey coming up. So follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Saying that the Walker Beuhler signing may make sense for the Yankees, but don't look for durability. Seeing that the Reds and the Royals made a trade that makes sense. Urging Rafael Devers to move over to first. And remembering the impacts of William Cox. This has been Locked On MLB. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.